everybody. Welcome back to the Common Law. Here at the Common Law, we like to discuss everyday legal issues and just give you a general understanding on the law. Today is a special episode. I have two guests this evening. They're both realtors. They both work out of this North Shore area. We have Tegan Gaeta and Max Avigliati. How are you guys doing today?
Doing very well, thank you.
Good, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for coming.
Good.
Like I will say in every episode, although I am an attorney, I'm not your attorney. So if there's anything that we hear here, anything that you hear on the show today, whether it be legal advice, realtor advice, please do not take it as such. We're just talking in generalities here. So if you do have a specific question, feel free to email myself, Tegan, or Max here. But first, let's just get to know you two. So Tegan was my neighbor from Ipswich, Mass. Growing up many moons ago. Mm-hmm. So Tegan, tell me how you get started in real estate.
So I got started in real estate about 5 or 6 years ago when I was living in Chicago. So I started in a different city, and I was waitressing and bartending, and I met some local real estate investors, and I ended up getting my license. And when I moved back home to Massachusetts, I started focusing on the Boston, North Shore areas. And it's been very crazy couple of years in the market. It's been a lot of fun. We've had a lot of success, and focusing a lot on development and working with first-time home buyers and just local sellers in the area. And as you said, we've known each other a long time. We've done some deals together, so it's been really great.
Oh, great. Max, nice. What about you? How did you get started?
Well, I got started in 2012. I got my license.
Okay.
And I was working in this city for a company called Gibson Sotheby's, and they're still around. They're expanding. And I worked in the Back Bay office with a couple really good brokers, and they kind of took me under their wing for a few, and I, kind of did odd jobs for them, like smoke inspections, delivering folders.
Okay.
Then I started doing a lot of rentals to learn the city, learn, the lingo, the streets, how deals were done, and then just being in the office, I kind of just started getting more leads. And then next thing you know, I was at Sotheby's for 10 years. And then about 4 years ago, I joined Compass in the Back Bay. So
okay.
I've been going on 4 years with Compass. And I primarily do stuff in the city or surrounding suburbs.
Okay. So I know Tegan does more of the North Shore area. You're probably more Boston Metro.
Boston Metro, but I do stuff in the suburbs. But
okay.
if it is North Shore, I would refer to Tegan.
Gotcha.
Absolutely.
All right, great. Well, again, I'd like to welcome you both again.
Thank you.
Now, we've discussed the common law. We try to talk about like those everyday legal issues. Me, as an attorney that focuses on estate planning and real estate, something that I've been seeing a lot lately has been people looking to purchase or sell houses without first obtaining a realtor. So they come directly to me as their real estate attorney to help them either buy or sell. And what I really want to talk about today is the importance of a realtor, why potential clients should be coming to you or any other realtor in general. What are you really bringing to the table? From my experience, it seems like realtors have a great understanding of what a fair price is. A lot of my clients will ask me, is this worth $600,000? Is this worth $800,000? Is this worth $1 million? I could do the comps myself, but I don't have my finger on the pulse of the pricing as much as a realtor does. So what other aspects is a really good reason for somebody looking to buy or sell a house? What's a good reason for them to select a realtor and use a realtor now?
I think that's a great question, and as you said, right now with the market the way that it is, it's so competitive. I think a lot of buyers and sellers too are trying to sometimes skip finding a realtor or just go and represent themselves in order to save money or to save time. But with the market being so competitive, you definitely want someone knowledgeable to represent you, as you said, running comps and knowing what the fair price is. You want the house to appraise out if you're buying, so even if you think you can offer over, it might not work out in terms of bank purposes.
And financing.
Exactly.
So just so everybody knows, so when you go ahead and you apply for a mortgage, you need that appraisal to be at asking or over Otherwise, you could lose bank financing. Is that what you're referring to?
Exactly,
Yeah.
because the bank is, they're not going to put up $1 million for a house that's worth $300,000. It just doesn't make sense for their bottom line. So, and they don't want to become over leveraged. So, having someone that can walk you through those steps, because it is a complicated process, and having someone that has the right network of attorneys and lenders, as we all know, rates have gone up over the past year. They've doubled. So working with the right lenders so that you can shop some rates and potentially save a lot of money. On that note, there's also a lot of programs right now, especially coming from government financing and funding, where you can potentially obtain grants or different loans, ideally a grant for a down payment. I just got wind yesterday through my team. We're both at large companies, so having a team behind you is so important as a realtor. You get so much more knowledge than just an average home buyer. So my team sent me a program yesterday where the government is actually giving out $75,000 grants
Oh, wow.
for down payments for certain buyers. So that's knowledge that I have that your average home buyer probably doesn't. So we're in tune with, these programs that are coming up, and we can help guide you and hopefully save you some money.
Fantastic.
And just to play off what Tegan said, I think it's important to have a really good team, especially in today's market, because we all know inventory across Massachusetts is very low. Interest rates are now higher than before, so it's a lot more competitive. And I think it's very important to have a good team because every transaction is different. Every buyer is different. So maybe a certain type of lender for one buyer may not be good for another buyer. Or same thing goes with attorneys. There are a lot of different attorneys out there. Obviously you have your typical closing attorney, but some closing attorneys are very well versed in zoning or certain neighborhoods or have certain relationships with certain banks, which also helps. So I think definitely having a good team and, even having a good realtor it's really important because a lot of times they're plugged in the neighborhood, in that market. They know what's coming on the market. They have good relationship with other brokers, and there's a lot of stuff that's been, a lot of deals going on off market. And if you have a good relationship with other brokers, they would want to do deals with you. They know you have good clients, and vice versa. So, I would rather work with somebody that I trust, I like, that I know they're going to do a good job, rather than just some regular Joe Schmo broker that doesn't really know what's going on.
That's what it comes down to, I think, in a lot of things. Is just having a good network of people that you can trust. Because if you can trust them, you'll know what gets done. If you can't trust them, you're not going to refer them the work anyway.
Exactly.
So, and ultimately, we're just trying to keep the client happy from when they start the process, when they start, I imagine all home buyers start on the internet, like everything else these days, looking at Redfin, then they obtain a realtor, and that's usually the realtors end up referring the attorneys or the mortgage officers, and sort of the whole process moves sort of smoothly through them. But it really all at the center of all of that is the realtor, in my opinion.
They say they say you're at the top of the funnel.
Yeah.
They come to you and I had a really good broker that I worked for. She always told me, you're not going to make someone buy the house, but your job is to keep everything moving smooth and the deal moving forward, because you never know what can come up. Maybe, like you mentioned, appraisal comes in low. All right, how are you going to deal with that? Maybe the inspection comes back a little wonky. All right, well, now do you know some contractors that can kind of give you an idea of what things are going to cost? And it's just important to have all those people in play, just so you have a solution for a problem.
Exactly. I mean, from my personal experience, I much prefer working with clients who already have the realtor established. If they come to me first, I can definitely try to encourage them to hire a realtor. It makes my job 100 times easier. Usually when you're a real estate attorney and with a realtor, it's not a 9-to-5 job. Like, if there's a problem comes up at 8:30 at night on a Saturday, it's like, well, we got to drop everything we're doing. We got to try to solve this problem because the client's really stressed out about it.
Sure.
So it's really important, that you're always available for them. At least I always find that. And the realtors are just a good buffer to make sure, I'm not involved unless I need to be, because sometimes I charge hourly. That can get expensive. And typically you don't want to do that to the client if it's just something small.
Sure.
And I think everyone's looking to save a buck now with the rates being so high, where I feel like they think, well, they can just assume that the realtor is an easy thing to chop off, like an easy expense to lose.
Yeah.
And it couldn't be further from the truth. Like you said, I like that analogy, the top of the funnel. Everything relates to it. So
Sure.
Without a good realtor, you're kind of could be lost in the ocean, so to speak.
Yeah, and a lot of, for instance, buyers that work with buyers agents sometimes have the misconception that they have to pay them a commission, which they don't. The seller always pays a commission.
Yeah.
And, yes, you could technically go right to the listing agent, but, that listing agent isn't going to have both you and the seller's best interest in mind, because they're representing both sides. So if you have a buyer's agent, they're representing you and your best interests, and the listing agent representing the seller and their best interest. So it's good to be that buffer in between. Because if not, then again, you're getting both sides, which can be good for the realtor because you're making the full commission, but the representation could be lacking.
Yeah, exactly. And you brought up a really good point I want to touch back on, where you mentioned the seller is paying the realtor fee.
Correct.
So usually that's split between both the listing agent and then whoever is the buyer's realtor, buyer's agent. Exactly. I think you've probably seen this in Boston more than Teagan, Max. But Teagan, have you ever seen like these additional service contracts between like a buyer and a realtor for maybe like 0.5%, and it's like an additional fee that you would get? I see a lot more in Boston than I do up in the North Shore.
I actually just came across that because I mentor some agents at the company, and one of my mentees did have an additional contract with his buyer. It was for the half a point because our commissions do vary, and everything is negotiable. I tell people I do a lot off market too, so another benefit of working with a realtor is sometimes you go to Zillow and you see properties, and that's all well and good, but there's a lot available that people don't know about, and having the right realtor that's plugged into the community and has good relationships with other brokers and other agents will know listings that are coming up and probably can get you in the door sooner. But yeah, we did come across that. It was in a suburb, and it ended up working out for the agent. He was able to get the extra half a point on that contract, and that was an agreement that he had with the buyer, and the buyer understood, and they were fine with it, so they paid it at closing. I don't know if you've seen that.
Well, I've seen where is sometimes the listing agent will write in, if the property doesn't sell, or maybe the seller wants to go in a different direction, that they will reimburse the agent for the marketing costs.
Okay.
Because it is a lot of money for pictures and Matterport, and sometimes if it's a bigger home, staging, and sometimes you have to do little things to get the property ready, and a lot of times the agent will take on that responsibility, but you also want to be reimbursed if the sale doesn't happen.
Yeah, exactly.
So a lot of times they will write that into the listing agreement. You could write anything into a listing agreement as long as both sides agree on it.
Yeah, like Teagan said, and I'm a huge proponent of this.
Yeah.
Everything is negotiable.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
Of course, it is.
So,
there's nothing set in stone.
no, exactly. And that's how it should be.
Yeah.
Like, you want to be able to negotiate these things because, like, no two houses are the same.
Exactly.
No two listings are going to be the same. No two purchase and sales are going to be the same. No two deeds are going to be the same. It's all different.
It's all different.
So we all have, that's part of the job, is making sure that, and I've seen it from working with bad real estate attorneys. You just get like a purchase and sale agreement has the little wrong address in there, or the people's names haven't been changed, and he clearly just cut and pasted from something else, and he wasn't paying attention. Or the worst is when you see it and you get the deed and it has all that stuff on it. I'm like, the deed's really important.
Yeah.
Like the purchase and sale is important for like a month.
Yeah.
The deed's important forever.
And that's important because I've been a part of transactions where it's the client, they're like, wait a second, my last name's spelled wrong, but you referred me to this attorney. So it's like, you also want to cover your back too. Like, with the people you refer out, because it comes back, at the end of the day, it comes back to you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
You know?
it all, like the fun, that I like that funnel analogy. It comes back to it because it all swirls around and everything comes back.
Yeah.
So
And I think that's something that's really important to note too, because there's so many different types of attorneys, lenders, agents, but working with the right agent and a good agent is going to review the PNS. Like, some agents aren't going to, and that's why you want to make sure you're potentially interviewing your agent or making sure you're doing background on who you're working with. I review all my purchase and sales for my buyers and my sellers, and especially when we're working with development deals and things like that, there's so much that can go wrong and people don't realize, especially if you're putting up a large sum for a deposit. Some people, first-time home buyers, are putting up what might be their life savings.
Yeah, everything they have.
And there's so much verbiage, and attorneys, of course, are going to be the go-to person for that, and that's the attorney's job to make sure that's written correctly. But like you said, and Max and I have both come across it, and we've talked about it a lot. There's been times when the name's incorrect, and maybe the attorney's having a bad day or they're rushing, so you want someone that's going to put a second pair of eyes on it and really understand what's going on.
It's crazy how often the names are wrong on those, right?
Yeah.
I can't believe
Crazy.
it.
Yeah, well, the thing is, like you said, a basic PNS is basically a template, and then
Yeah.
it's a lot of plug and play, but you don't want to get sloppy at the same time either.
No.
Especially in situations like I saw during COVID, having the right COVID language. We had a deal, and right before the closing, the buyer was extremely sick with COVID. He had like a 50-50 chance of whether or not he was in the hospital, if he was going to make it. And because the language in the PNS wasn't written correctly about an extension, he potentially was going to lose his deposit. And at that point, he had other things to worry about, his health. But, making sure that you understand this is happening in the market, this is happening in the world, in the economy. What is the language? We were just talking about it on the way here. Because the market's so competitive, people put in different terms. Maybe the deal is subject to the seller finding suitable housing. So how are you going to word that and make sure that, there's the correct paragraph in the PNS that the realtor has discussed with the attorney to make sure that you don't get to closing day in 2 or 3 months and you've put down a big chunk of money and then, the deal falls through. So having someone that's going to review that paperwork with you is big.
Yeah, it's huge. It's funny you mentioned COVID, and I had a client back in the pandemic who they were selling their house and buying another house. The sale was contingent upon the other sale going through, and the other sale went through. But the people who bought my client's house, well, they didn't have that same language in their purchase sale agreement, and they never moved out.
Yeah.
So I had clients ready to move into this big, beautiful, brand new house, and because of another deal, which we could enforce the purchase and sale, but we have to go through an eviction process, and it's a whole other episode. We talk about evictions.
Exactly.
But basically, because they didn't have the provision in their purchase and sale, my clients were stuck waiting on them to move out. Now, again, we could have been harder to enforce our provisions, but like if they just did it right on their end, everything would have worked out.
Exactly.
So it's like because they're so different, and because they're plug and play, and because there's so many variables and people aren't paying attention to these things, it's really important to have a strong realtor that's going to double check that.
Sure.
It's just as important as having a strong real estate attorney.
Sure.
To double check that stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
The team is important.
Yeah, the whole team's important.
The team is
Yeah.
very important.
So, we're coming, it's June, we're coming into the summer.
Yep.
This is typically the time things start to get busy. I know there's a lot of people out there either maybe looking to move, maybe they're afraid of the rates, maybe they're afraid of the no inventory, the lack of inventory that's going on right now. So what would you guys say, somebody watching now that is on the fence of either buying or selling? How do you picture the summer going in the real estate market this year?
I think the market is going to continue to be very competitive. Hopefully rates don't climb up much higher, if any higher. But if you're thinking about buying or selling, like Max said, get your team in place, get the right realtor first. and really explore your options and be confident in what you're looking for. Make a wish list, think about what are your must-haves. If you're selling your house, look at the comps, get a good realtor, local, that knows what's going on in the market and that can get you top dollar, and make sure that you do have a game plan, because as we were just talking about with suitable housing, and there are a lot of moving pieces, so if you're leaving one house going to another, make sure that you have everything lined up so you don't get into a situation where you might be closing on something and having nowhere else to go. So have a plan of action. What are you going to do? And maybe have a backup plan too if you're going to have to rent for a few months, or maybe stay somewhere else.
Yeah. And there's a blender I work with at Guaranteed Rate, and he always says, marry the house, date the rate.
Okay.
So if you like the house and you're in position to buy it, yes, interest rates are a little bit higher than they have been, but comparatively speaking, on the long term, they're still not that high. So if you fall in love with the house, buy it, and you can always refi, right? And that'll get you back in a position where you might be saving some money. And, have a contingent plan. Because in the city, people are coming and going. So, transaction-wise, might be slowing down a little bit, or it might be a little more days on market. But people still have to move, whether it's work or transfer or life, events.
Yeah, life gets in the way. Well, life happens, things change. And I'm with you on the rates.
Yep.
I couldn't agree more. If you're watching this, please do not be afraid of the high rates. They will go down eventually. I promise you. And you can always refinance. I did conveyancing work for many years, and I would, help people refi, and I was saving them, up to $700 a month coming off their mortgage. That's huge.
It's a lot.
That's like in a raise.
Significant.
$700 a month is amazing.
Yep.
So we'll get back there again. It'll all work out. So yeah, I'm with you though. I think it is going to be competitive this summer.
Definitely.
There's just too many people out there who have under 3% mortgages who refied, during the pandemic and just don't want to give up that loan, or
they're not going anywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
And inventory is low
right
now, so there's less to buy and there's less to rent. Rents are going up too.
Yeah.
So even if you're looking to rent, that's a competitive market as well. So having someone that can get you something that hasn't been seen yet off market is key. And good realtors can do that for you.
And you guys both work in the rental industry as well, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, and I was just going to touch on that too. I mean, rents I expect to climb just because people might have a good rate and maybe they'll decide, hey, rather than selling, I'm going to rent this out and make a profit that way. So rather than spending a tremendous amount of money on a rental, even if you're paying like an 8% or a 7% rate on your mortgage, at least you're building equity and you're having something that you own. So don't be afraid, like Max said, to shop different rates and consider refinancing in the future, but it's in the long term probably better for you than paying a very high rental
Yeah,
price.
exactly. And if you are looking to rent, by all means, have an attorney write a lease. Do not just write one on your own. I've seen so many garbage leases, it's not even funny.
Yeah.
And they're almost as bad as the purchase and sale agreements, folks.
Yeah.
They're bad.
And you can't put a security deposit in your personal account either.
Yeah, don't do
FYI.
that.
In Massachusetts, as a landlord, it is very difficult to get tenants out if you have a problem. So I see most realtors, and I always tell my team, don't do this. Like you said, they use the standard lease. Make a lease or write a lease with an attorney that's tailored to the property. There's so much that you want to include. It's hard to get people out, and paying for an eviction is very expensive.
Yeah. So I always tell people that make sure to, if you're going to go with a lease, have a lawyer review it. Well, Tegan, Max.
Yep.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
Tegan, Max, thank you so much for joining me today on the Common Law. Folks, their email should be on the screen right now. If you have a question for me or them, please email us directly. And thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time on the Common Law.
Thank you.
Thank you.